This year, we are adding a big expansion of our herbal medicinal flower garden, as well as a full-on flower with cut flower garden. It's gonna be a combination. But if you are planning on growing flowers, especially medicinal herbal flowers, you need to make sure that you are planning far enough in advance, because most of them, the seeds aren't just ones that you're gonna go and plop in the ground like you would when you're planting a vegetable garden. Some of the seeds require cold stratification. So not only do you have your planting time, which is always gonna be based around that last average frost date when we're talking about spring planting, but then you also have to count backwards and account for any time that needs to be done for cold seed stratification. So some of the things that you want to be considering when you are planning on planting your medicinal flower garden is obviously what are the herbs that your family is going to be using that will be growing in your area. So opposite of a vegetable garden, almost all vegetables are an annual crop that we're going to be planting by seed every single year. We may be seed starting some of the items indoors to get a jump on the growing season, but there's something that gets to be replanted every single year. But when it comes to our herbs and our medicinal flowers, some of them are perennial, meaning once we have them planted and established, like lavender and rosemary and things in the mint family, they're going to come back every single year, unless we do something drastic and accidentally kill them. But other than that, they're a one and done, so to speak. But then you also have annuals that need to be planted every single year. They're not going to come back. Now, some of them, like chamomile, that reseeds so prolifically that usually once you have one plant, it will just reseed and keep popping back up in the same area, and you don't actually have to plant it again each year. So even though it's an annual, it kind of acts like a perennial because it continually reseeds itself, which is great. However, if you're putting in a brand new bed, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to be planting them either from start, or you can also seed start some of your perennials as well. And then of course your annuals. After it's been established, then you'll only use this process when it comes to the annual plants. So the first thing I like to do is make sure that I've got our bases covered with the herbs that I feel like we're going to be using on a consistent basis. So for us, most families, especially if you have kids, you're going to be going through cold symptoms throughout the year. So, stuffy, congested noses, sore throats, maybe earaches, headaches, those types of, common ailments and symptoms that most of us deal with at least one time throughout the year. So I want to make sure that I am growing, for example, I've got sage. So sage is one of my favorite herbs to use for the sore throat, but sage is also really pretty because it's kind of got a silvery type leaf. So it looks really beautiful in the garden as well. And it also dries really well and can also be used in, obviously you can use it culinary wise. I love sage, especially with poultry and in meatballs and meatloafs. But you can also use it as a cut flower in cut flower arrangement. So it kind of goes, it's a very multi-purpose plant, and those are the ones that I like to focus on. Some other ones that I've got lemon balm here, which is in the mint family. Lemon balm is delicious. It can be a spreader though. So that's some of the things with, especially with the perennial flowers, that you want to be thinking about, or plants. I don't think people probably would call lemon balm a flower per se, though it can get a little bloom on it. But think about its spreading habit. Is it invasive? Is it going to take over an area? Those are all things that you're going to want to think about, especially if you're planting them in the ground. And anything in the mint family will spread via runners and can become very invasive in an area. Oregano, kind of the same thing. Some other things that we've got in here is thinking about, this is Echinacea root. And you can also use the aerial parts, the leaf and the flower of Echinacea, and make an Echinacea tincture. I've got a video showing you how to do that here. And then once the plant is about 2 to 3 years old, then you can begin to harvest the root. But again, when you are thinking of putting these in, you want to think about the space that they're going to be in. Do they have room for growth? And how is the spreading habit going to be of the plants? So that's something that you want to consider. I've got some feverfew here, which is another very pretty herb. It also is one that people will use feverfew. I think it kind of gives you the indication there as well. And then here I've got some elder flowers. Now, we're very familiar, most of us, with elderberry and making elderberry syrup. I've got a video on how to grow elderberries if you want to look at that more, as well as making elderberry syrup. But you can also use the elder flower. So it has medicinal properties as well, and it's also really pretty. And it dries really well. So you can even use it in a dried flower arrangement if you wanted to. I find I work best if I'm on pencil and paper, and then I like to transfer this to my computer for my long-term records or into my gardening journal. But I just like to kind of get a scrap piece of paper out. But I'm going to be sharing this chart with you. You'll get a copy of mine, the actual things I'm putting in, but then there'll also be some blank ones that you can go ahead and put in case you're growing different things from me. So if you want to head on over to the blog post, you can get a free copy of this. But one of the things that I need to know as I'm going through each of these plants is, does it require cold seed stratification? So yes or no, and if it does, how long does it need to be in the cold for the cold stratification? So here I've got horehound. It does need to be cold stratified if growing from seed, and it needs to be done for 4 weeks. Then I've got the column, does it need to be started indoors? Some of the seeds you can just throw out outdoors. They don't need to be started indoors just as soon, like depends on each specific plant, if it needs to be before frost date or right at frost date. So calendula I have here, it doesn't need any type of cold stratification, nor does it need to be started indoors. And then I have, is it a perennial or an annual? And calendula is an annual, though it tends to self-seed a lot like chamomile, but I want to make sure that I've got a couple different varieties of calendula. I want to make sure that my strawberry blonde, I've noticed that the strawberry version of the calendula, it does not tend to come back unless I actually plant it by seed like the orange calendula does. I don't ever have to plant it. It just readily self-seeds. So I'm making sure that I've got some of the strawberry blonde seeds that I will be planting out at the appropriate times, but that one is an annual. Horehound's a perennial. And then I've got bloom time, because I want this to also act as a cut flower garden and also be something that we enjoy visually looking at. I want to make sure, as I'm looking through the flowers and the plants that we're putting in, that I've got something in bloom all the way from early spring, mid-spring, late spring, early summer. I think you can follow that train of thought there all the way through until the fall. So I have a record here of the bloom time, so I can make sure that we've got overlap and we don't have any specific time period where there's not going to be anything in bloom. And then, depending on how in depth you want to go, I also have bloom color. So then I can see if there's any holes, like if I've got way too much of, say, like a salmony pink color, which I really like, or a blush flower. I need to make sure that I've got some contrast in there, and not every single bloom or flower is going to be the exact same color or all in the same shade. So I've got, for the calendula, the strawberry blonde one is actually a pink with like a little bit of pale yellow. It's really, really pretty. The horehound is going to be a white flower. I've got ashwagandha, which is going to have yellow and then orange berries. The Hopi red dye amaranth, so we'll be able to dye some of our own stuff if we want to, is a dark red purple. I've got asters that are apricot, as well as peonies, and those are apricot. Bunny tails is a grass, and it doesn't really have any medicinal properties, but I just love how soft and how they look visually, and they look really pretty in bouquets as well as dried flowers. And then I've got straw flowers, and they're a mix. So I just started with my list there so that I have, if you do this early enough in the season, you're still gonna have enough time. If you do need to order any seeds, that you'll be able to do so, and if they require cold stratification before your spring summer planting, you'll have plenty of time to do all that. So again, when you are looking at the medicinal side of it, I like to make sure that I've got those herbs that are going to help aid us, like if you have congestion going on. So things like rosemary are really great to be able to do herbal steams with, is a good one. Peppermint is another one that can really help, open up those airways when they get congested. Peppermint's also a great, kind of an all-purpose herb. Peppermint is known to help aid with headaches, can help aid with digestion. Obviously, just as a culinary herb, peppermint is great. I like to do a peppermint ice water in the summertime months, as well as hot tea in the wintertime. So peppermint's a great herb to do. And then beyond herbs that can service, like I said, with like cold foods, kind of everyday things, if you have people, maybe it's you, maybe it's people in your family that have chronic conditions that they deal with. So For example, if somebody has high blood pressure, then you would probably want to be looking at researching some herbs that can possibly aid and help with that. And if they, then obviously finding what those are. And then if they are suitable to your environment and your climate, then look at adding those in and growing them. So everybody's medicinal herb garden hopefully will look a little bit different based upon the needs of their family, obviously their growing climate, but also what you like. So as I said, I'm throwing in different flowers because I want to have the beauty of flowers with also the beauty of medicine and melding those together. So it's a visual experience, but is also then serving my family and hopefully others with the medicinal properties that some of those flowers may have. Now, as far as sources and organization, I love this seed box. I have one for all of my medicinal seeds and my herbs, and then I've got one that houses all of the seeds for the vegetable garden. And I just kind of have them labeled here. I've got, these are the herbs that are medicinal. So I've got like my hyssop and different herbs like that in here. And then I've got, this is more medicinal flowers. So I've got the calendula that have more true blossoms. So I've got calendula in here, I've got marshmallow in here, I've got chamomile is in here. And then I've got my culinary herbs. So we've got, what do I have in this one? I'm trying to remember here. I've got holy basil is in here. Oh, excellent herb to have on hand. A different type of basil. We've got dill, cilantro, lemon balm. So I kind of have them categorized by that. Obviously you can categorize them any way that you want. Now, as far as sources for finding medicinal flower seeds, like live plants and stuff is different, but some of my favorite places for medicinal seeds is, and they also have flower seeds as well, but has been Siskiyou Seeds. This is a heirloom organic seed company out of Oregon, and they have a lot of medicinal seeds for herbs, a pretty expansive library. So that's one spot that I go to. Another one is the Seed Savers Exchange. So they also have regular cut flowers, but they also have some medicinal herb flowers, so you can check them out as well. Those are one of my favorites. And then as far as, there's another company, they have live plants and seeds. And so you can check on their availability, and that is strictlymedicinalseeds.com. I'll have a blog post that has all of the links to this that you can go in and look and find all these different resources too. And then for flowers, I've got my mullein in here and my feverfew. Let's see. That one's Seed Savers. Oh, look at that, you guys. So this is a touch of red buff calendula. Isn't that color amazing? I cannot wait to try it. And then this one, I've done this regular calendula and strawberry calendula before, but I love calendula so much that I had to get a couple different varieties. Look at that one. Look at that. Pink Sunrise. Now, to be fair, I haven't grown these yet. I'm assuming they're gonna look just like the package shows, but I'm super excited. So they're just so pretty. You can kind of see the color palette that I like. And then another spot that I have been getting quite a bit of my seeds, and I got live bulbs from as well. And those are already actually in the ground beneath the feet of snow that we have outside right now, is Eden Brothers. And I have zinnia seeds from them. I'm gonna be putting in quite a bit of zinnia, as well as aster. And my straw flowers are from Seed Savers Exchange. So those are some great places. And like I said, that is a mixture. The ones I gave you at the first part were more medicinal herbal seeds. And then these are some just fun flower seeds. Another great place that is semi-local to me, I don't know if they have any left, it's more the cut flower, not herbal though, is Florette Farms. So that might be another source for looking at really pretty, beautiful cut flowers. She's got a lot of information. Her name is Erin, on their Instagram and their website on growing cut flowers. And I've actually been going through that and looking at some of the varieties that they've been doing and how they have their beds laid out and all of that, because doing a cut flower garden is actually new for me. I've done medicinal herbs and we're expanding that into the cut flower garden and doing a mixture, but it's new for me. One other thing that you will want to consider, and this is something we do in the vegetable garden, but it also carries into the flower and the herb garden, is any type of companion planting. So when it comes to the cut not just cut flowers, but flowers as well. Oh, medicinal roses. I forgot that. I don't have seeds because I got live plants. They're actually out in my high tunnel right now, but Heirloom Roses is where I ordered mine from. And I got Ragusa roses because they produce the really nice large rose hips. And that's the part, you can actually use the petals in tea too, but that's the part I'm after. And so I've got a couple varieties of those, but deer can like roses, and deer can like a lot of our plants. They can like our vegetable gardens as well, and our fruit trees. The deer and I have a little bit of an issue. They like too much of what I like, and I'm not overly fond of them when they do that. So I am going to be doing some companion planting with deer repellent plants next to the plants that they might like. So for the roses, I'm not decided yet if I'm going to try putting deep down in the ground so that the roots of the peppermint don't spread, or if I'm just going to put them in containers near the base of the roses. I haven't quite decided that part yet, but I'm going to be interplanting, especially around the perimeter part of the herbal flower bed, because that's where the deer are going to most likely come up to first, and interspersing some of the deer resistant or plants the deers don't like, and putting those, interspacing them in there. So that's something that you'll want to consider too if you've got any pests like deer, that you've got some plants in there that they don't like, and getting those placed appropriately. And so I'm still trying to decide which one of those plants that we're going to put in, but I will put in the blog post that accompanies this, the list that I come up with of the deer resistant plants that we're going to try putting around some of the plants that they find just as pretty as I do. I have a video for you here to learn more about how to do cold seed stratification, as well as why. And then if you want to get your hands on this chart and the resources that go with that, you can go over to the blog post and get it there.